Well, we can all agree that Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin is one of the best live-action comic book villains ever. We love him in Daredevil Born Again, as we did in Daredevil, the original series, and we'd like to see his other great hero counterpart, Spider-Man, take him on in as well in a movie or something. But of course, that won't happen anytime soon due to rights issues. Vincent D'Onofrio went on the record on that a few days back. You know what? I really wish Disney would put their money to good use for once and get all the rights back to Marvel where they belong. This is the review of Champions, and I'm your host, Grandmaster. With me is a powerful panel made up of the finest champions Sakar has to offer. Let me introduce them to you. First up, voice only, the grand old lady of the podcast of champions. We have Lokismom. How are you?
Oh, I feel wonderful. I just got out of the shower.
Yeah, you smell fresh. Lord Deathman, how are you? Voice only as well, of course.
I will dare.
Then we have the original, Mr. Taylor first. How are you?
I'm excellent.
That's great. No devil jokes. Okay. And last but not least, back on the show, Merv, how are you, man?
I like deviled eggs.
Oh, well, at least that's something.
In the shower.
As in the shower, okay. Today we're going to talk about episode 7 of Daredevil Born Again, as you might have guessed. But before we do, I want to ask you all to help us out. Like and share this video, subscribe to our channel, and join our forum at sakar.freeforums.net. It's full of nice people. So you can set up an account, join the conversation. And how you set up an account? Well, click on the link in the description below, and it takes you right to the page. Make up a username and join the conversation. No problem. Consider this your final warning. After this point, the spoilers are incoming. So if you haven't seen this week's episode yet, do that first, and then check out our video. Well, Daredevil episode 7. Matt is fully back in the suit, and I have a feeling that Fisk doesn't like it. Do you agree, Taylor? Fisk, does he like it?
Fisk is not happy about Daredevil being back, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's a great episode. My question is, how come the people that are writing this show are not writing everything for the MCU? I just don't get how they can go from warm to cold so much in this franchise. But this episode was fantastic, and I can't wait to see what comes next.
Lokismom, your quick thoughts on this week's episode?
Well, I always appreciate a really good sexy shower scene, and they delivered in Disney style, of course. You know, not quite as explicit as I would have liked it, but I'll go with what they got.
Okay, yeah. Well, Merv, your quick thoughts?
Yeah, not as explicit as I would have liked it either. But, yeah, I enjoyed this episode. This was a decent episode. Definitely moved the needle on the Muse storyline, and moved the needle everywhere. So it's a good episode.
Or Deathman?
I too enjoyed this episode. I think overall the series has been really strong. It's had great writing, which I think is the almost the show's best feature. And other than a few minor complaints, yeah, I really enjoyed this episode.
Yep, I agree with the panel. I thought it was a great episode again. And as always, whenever I enjoy a show, it has good writing. So it's almost like that's the most important thing if you put out media, to have good writers. Crazy. Merv, minor complaints, major complaints, or just you want to, make love in the shower to this episode?
I mean, I wouldn't have minded it, but no. there were a few minor complaints. I do think throughout some of the scenes, I don't know if it was a directing issue or what, because I felt like the lines were written good, but I felt like some of the delivery or the impact that some of these lines had, was missing a little bit. In particularly with Fisk, especially when he's talking it over and the camera's going in and out of his office and the window and the office and the window. Just some of that just felt a little off to me, and I didn't know if it was because of the cinematography or if it was a directing issue, because the lines themselves felt fine, but I felt like they should have resonated a little more with me in that particular moment. Um, Other than that, I don't have too many complaints. Outside of, it seems like the Muse story is already done, and it's only been 2 episodes of the Muse story where it was like the focus. I felt like they could have probably done a little more with it. Not that, I mean, this was fine, but I felt like it could have been, I don't know, maybe a bigger part of the earlier episodes, 1, 2, 3, or before Muse really shows up in this series, because it felt like he showed up last episode and then now he's out of the picture. I presume, unless he has some resurrection ability that I don't know about, or whatever. But obviously they want to get along to Fisk and the police and all that stuff. But I do feel like they could have probably leaned a little bit more into the Muse stuff, as seeds throughout like a lot of the episodes, building up to the inevitable confrontations with Daredevil. So I do think there was a little bit of a missed opportunity there, I guess, to make that storyline a little bit bigger of a story in this season. But I'm really excited to get to the Fisk stuff with his secret police force and all that stuff, because we only have like 2 episodes left, I think. So I get the idea of getting him out of the way, but it did feel like it was just almost a minor speed bump in the Daredevil storyline, which is Muse, which that's fine too. I also, and it wasn't until this week, I started to really ponder the idea of who Muse was. Um, and I felt like that revelation, it's fine. I only it was only a recent thought that maybe he could have been somebody that we knew more, outside of a brief guy at a book signing for Heather that shows up in one 5-second scene, however many episodes ago. But it all worked out. I also think you don't, as a show, just as a show, I don't think they need to tell us that this guy's trained in Taekwondo or whatever. They're supervillains. They should have some fighting prowess. It kind of goes without saying. Yeah, I mean, the Joker fights Batman all the time, and he puts up a good fight physically. Nobody would say the Joker is on par with Batman's, fighting ability, but he does a good job. But I don't know that the Joker was ever trained in anything, and I don't need to know that the Joker was ever trained in anything. Same thing with Muse here. I didn't. I feel like there was a lot of information. They were just like, we have to explain how he can go hand to hand. And I felt like that was even some people's complaints, like, how is he even fighting, last episode? Like, how is he capable of fighting Daredevil here? He's a villain. You know what I mean? The villains fight the heroes all the time. I don't need, you know, now if he was continually beating Daredevil down, okay, maybe that's a little suspicious. But Daredevil mopped the floor with him last episode, and then proceeds to do that again this episode. So I didn't need any explanation on his Taekwondo abilities or lack thereof. Uh, but other than that, those are my only nitpicky complaints. I really liked the action scene between Daredevil and Muse in this episode, the fight sequence. I really liked all the Muse stuff with Heather in the apartment beforehand. The back and forth conversations. Whenever Heather kind of realizes the situation she's in, and then she tries to flee, and there's that whole thing there. I really liked Fisk's. He's doing a really good job. It feels like the second he knows that Daredevil's back, he is rattled. He is just completely rattled, and Vincent D'Onofrio does a great job portraying that in just the way he talks. He talks really confidently sometimes, and then whenever he's talking about Daredevil, you can see he's flustered. You know what I mean? He's doing a really good job of that. Now, whether he stays flustered for the rest of the season or whatever, I doubt it. I feel like he's building up his guts again to fight Daredevil one-on-one. But I like that he's kind of shook by it, given everything that happened to him as well, with everyone else, with Echo and whoever else he got beat up by. Um, In the final scene, okay, one little thing too. The character of Daniel, I really like this character, played by James Gandolfini's son Michael. I think it's Michael. Um, his threat to BB was perfect because one, BB betrayed him. You know what I mean? If they're supposed to be friends, she threw him right under the bus, which could have cost him his job, let alone his life. I mean, I don't know if she knew that, but Fisk could have killed him because of what happened there. Uh, and she just seems to, oh, I'm just going to report the honest truth. Okay, well that's fine, but you're going to get your friend killed in the process. That doesn't seem like a good idea. So I am full on Michael here, or I'm sorry, Daniel, and very anti BB right now. I love the BB report, but like she deserved, that threat, and she deserves this, this level of, you know, angst or whatever. She might be in over her head, and I'm curious to see where this story goes. I feel like there's going to be a confrontation between those two characters again at some point. But then the final shot where uh, Fisk is in the restaurant eating, which is a classic like mobster moment. The boss is in a restaurant by himself eating, and then the gunman comes in. But to see Buck shoot the guy and knowing that it was all a setup, like we knew Fisk wasn't going to die in that scene, but it was really still satisfying to see Luca get taken out by Buck there. That was really fun, and it again, like both of these characters, Murdoch and Fisk are full on their character again. They are not. They have shed their masks and they have put their real faces back on, which in the case of both of them is a good thing. I'm glad we're at this point with a couple episodes left.
Hmm, I agree. Well, you kind of stole my thunder because my next question for Lord Deathman was how is his Taekwondo? But no, well, I will just let
Sorry.
him pick apart whatever nitpicks he has and his highlights. Lord Deathman.
Sure. Well, first off, I think that the episode is strong, just as the series is fairly strong. There's a part of me that always wants to weigh this against the Netflix series, which I do think is really a gold standard for superhero storytelling. And I praise the series as such, when it was first airing. This seems a bit more compact, the way Disney has done it. I do think it is a worthy successor as a series, but there's a part of me that misses the hand and the chase and those elements that kind of border on the supernatural, yet they manage to get it into a grounded series. So you know, my highlights continue to be the writing on the series. It's pretty strong. I think they've created this really strong relationship between Murdoch and Fisk. Even though they're not really together at all ever in the series, you still feel the tension between those two characters as kind of like a hero and an arch villain relationship. It's probably the best hero villain relationship I think we have in the MCU, barring some of the stuff that went on in Infinity War with Thanos and the Avengers. But dramatically, it's really really strong stuff that just keeps the show engaging, despite some of the minor nits that I have. There's an effect in a show where things can kind of like where the world can start to just feel a little too small, like when you have the same psychotherapist doing couples therapy for the villain, dating the hero, and obsessed by an intermediate villain, right? Like the world feels a little more claustrophobic when you kind of connect all these different points and strings from single characters. So that kind of um bothers me in the storytelling, how small they're making the universe feel. I feel like Star Wars in the earlier trilogies kind of suffered from that vast universe, but only a couple of Skywalkers can get
Yeah,
anything done in it.
yeah, you
But
would think
yeah,
there's more than one therapist in New York.
right, right. You would think so.
Yeah,
And
but
then for them to all be oblivious of the connections, I was like, okay, at some point, one of them is going to figure out that, oh, he's dating my therapist and maybe I could leverage this. But no, everyone's kind of all in the dark about it until Matt figures out who Muse is or where to find Muse. I guess he didn't figure out who he was. His taekwondo, I think, I totally respect everybody else who really doesn't need this type of information in a dramatic presentation about superheroes. But I kind of like the fact that they gauged this guy's physical prowess against one of the. I mean, if you read the comic books, Daredevil is clearly in a top tier fighter in that universe. And while Muse's Taekwondo was good, not quite good enough for Daredevil. And I feel like the stunt choreography and the way the fights played out really they enacted that dramatically, and I respect that. I really appreciate that when you're looking at a fight. It's like he's getting two, a block and a punch in, but then by his third attempt, Matt is like all over him. It's like, okay, I saw that coming from you. FedEx that to me 2 days ago. I don't need that punch, right? I'm kind of done with you on this. And he becomes more of an annoyance in the fight than an actual, like, competent opponent that could take on someone that was trained by mystical ninjas that may come from, an entirely different universe. But yeah, so I do appreciate little things like that. I feel like I'm not going to stand here and say, or rather sit here and say that Muse was my favorite character and one of my favorite villains from the comic books. I read the comic books and I thought, Bansky as supervillain. Conceptually, it read nicely on paper, but I never kind of got the character's purpose, and I think they did a really good job of giving the character a little bit something more substantial. He was heavily stylized in the comic books, and he gets a little more substance in the live action adaptation. But I have to say that I feel like it was a waste of a character. The character's killed off almost as quickly as he's been introduced. We never really see the roots of this. There's a lot of telling us about Muse and his background, versus actually showing it the way they so expertly did with Poindexter in the first series. That was real character development, like showing him as a kid playing baseball, accidentally kills his coach. They showed you the genesis of that character's sociopathy, which made him feel a little bit more menacing when you got to the present moment in his confrontations with Murdoch. But that being said, I don't know. Maybe we're going to find out something about Muse where he comes back from the dead. I wouldn't mind a twist like that or something like that, because now they've cleared the board of this intermediary character, and all there really is the Murdoch Fisk confrontation, which doesn't really feel like they fleshed out how that's going to go down in the next 2 or 3 episodes, I think, that we have before the season finishes. But those are my nits and my highlights. Again, I still think that the show is incredibly strong. I love the relationships that the new shower scenes. I'm right there for those, like everybody else. But I feel like this character Heather kind of getting into being concerned with about Matt. Seeing the bruising, seeing the fact that he's hiding things. I felt like that. Although it's cliched in these types of situations, I do feel like that added some depth or dimension to their relationship that makes the character not a worthy successor to say Karen Page, but at least on par and not just like eye candy or random female that we threw in here to get iced by the second to last episode. So yeah, I hope they can like stop with the story compression, make the world feel a little bit more expansive like they did in the original Netflix series. But other than that, it is fine storytelling that I continue to enjoy.
I agree. Thank you for your great exposition about this. Taylor, do you have any complaints, nitpicks, or not?
No, I really don't. I like the way they wrapped up the Muse storyline. I don't think he necessarily needs to be more of a bigger character than that, or needs a bigger storyline. He was part of the show. The main part, of course, is still Fisk and Daredevil and the changes they're going through and everything that they're doing. The uh, the relationship with Fisk and his wife. is very interesting. There's a lot of debate online about whether she was actually trying to kill him and he outsmarted her, or if they were colluding. And honestly, it could be either way. It's a a coin toss. So anyone who, half the people online are going to be right and the other half are going to be wrong, but it easily could. There's nothing really in the show to solidify it either way, I don't think. Um, if I had to guess, I'd say that him and his wife worked together and set up the guy to get killed. But we'll see next week. As far as the world building, just because Merv and Lord Deathman have already covered all the major stuff for the episode. Apparently, there's a lot of superheroes in New York, vigilantes they're calling them mostly in this show, but their paths aren't crossing because I guess they have their own neighborhoods. Uh, Hell's Kitchen is on the west side of Manhattan Island, so Spider-Man is over in Queens, so you got to go all the way across Manhattan and across the East River to get to Queens, so it might as well be another country. Ms. Marvel, of course, is in Jersey City, but well, she's visiting California right now. But even when she's home, she's in Jersey City, which is across the Hudson River from the south end of Manhattan Island, and it's a whole nother state. Jersey's like a whole nother world. And even Ms. Marvel and Devil Dinosaur, they're on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, but they can't live there because for some reason the Lower East Side is constantly under attack by supervillains, and so they have to stay there and do their thing. So the city is divided up equally. Everyone has their own little piece of the pie to take care of. So Daredevil just has to handle central Manhattan all by himself, I guess. Fisk is very seems to be very happy that he's back into his crime lord days, even though he's still the mayor and he's still going to keep trying to do mayor stuff. He's just going to kill anyone who gets in his way, is what I think is what he's going to do here as going forward. He's done with the threats and back to, yeah, we're just going to kill anyone who gets in the way. So I think the show is going great. Again, I just echo everything that Merv and Lord Deathman said. And I really don't have any complaints at this time.
Yeah, well, sometimes the show is just great. It's as simple as that. Loki's mom. Do you have any complaints besides not explicit enough shower scenes?
That's the only one. But I just want to some. I've been listening to you guys and asking the questions about why the connection between Muse and everybody. Um, Once brought out, particularly with the Taekwondo reference, that Muse, and I forget what his real name is, but he is an elite. He comes from New York society. He's a privileged kid. And there's always a lot of scenes where we're seeing swordsman Jack Duchesne, or however his name's pronounced. He's part of New York society. Um, Fisk is always trying. One of his things is he's trying to be accepted as part of society because now he's the mayor. Of course, he's got to be invited into all these elite places and with these clubs and whatever. But of course, to them, he's just a thug. He's just a criminal, and he's a means to an end for them, and they don't really know what they've gotten themselves into by aligning themselves with Fisk. Um, why would Muse pick? Well, being a son, privileged son, he's going to go for the most famous therapist that he can find. And of course, she's the doctor. She's a published author, and she's also very interested in researching the vigilante people, and what they're about, and the psychology, and what motivates them. So she's drawn into that world herself. Of course, Fisk and Mrs. Fisk are there as for marriage counseling, but of course he's wanting to try to find out from her anything he can. I do think that, yeah, I would agree that some of it was kind of a little compacted, a little rushed too much as far as that goes. But I do think that the writing is excellent. Again, 4 stars to, or 10 out of 10 to Vincent D'Onofrio. He absolutely, he's not only a really great actor, but he really understands his character and has embodied him, and he appreciates him, and he's made him 3 dimensional, and we can I think we all appreciate that. Yeah, just those are just my thoughts. I do think that Fisk, as far as Daredevil being coming back, I think, well, yeah, that's his enemy. That's who he wants to defeat, and he's been a part of making Fisk see who he is because of his involvement with Echo and his influence over her. But I also think now he's finally he's been bored. He's been, he's tired of this. Oh, what, I have to go all of these things. I don't want. He wants to get back in the thick of who he used to be and who he really is. And I think, to a degree, he appreciates that Daredevil has revealed himself again.
Well, I think we have completely analyzed episode 7, except we haven't done a rating yet. Let's start with you, Lord Deathman. What's your number for episode 7 of Daredevil Born Again, season 1?
I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 Billy Clubs.
Lokismom?
I'm going to give it 4 pairs of devil horns, so that would be 8 out of 10.
Okay. Merv?
I'll give it 8 uncensored shower scenes out of 10.
Okay. Uh, Taylor?
Well, I'll just give it 9 out of 10.
Thank you. Thank you. I will give it also an 8 out of 10. I'm really hoping for a great finale, so I can go to 10 or 9 out of 10 as well, but I'm sticking it at 8 for now. So, that will conclude this review of Champions for episode 7 of Daredevil Born Again. We hope you have enjoyed our discussion today. If you did, help us out by liking and sharing this review and subscribing to our YouTube channel. And if you really want more of us, you can join our forum at sakar.freeforms.net. We would love it if you do that. Next week, we will be discussing episode 8, of course, of Daredevil Born Again, and we have a brand new episode of our Star Trek project online right now. And soon, we will start to review Andor Season 2, and on the horizon is also a review for Thunderbolts. For now, I want to thank you all, also on behalf of my fellow champions, and wish you to use the senses you've got. Bye.